Hello, our dear viewers. Today we have a very special guest. Now, he isn't an alumnus of the College of Engineering, but he is way more than that. He's part of the history, in fact, yes, of the College of Engineering, KNUST. He has served KNUST in a number of capacities. He has been Pro-Vice Chancellor. He's also the first Dean of Students. He was couched differently. And he's also one of the proponents of today known as Ghana Water Limited, at that time Ghana Water Sewerage Corporation. Am I right, Prof? So let me give you a background on this wonderful man, this very important personality. So if you hear the number of places he's been, the people he has interacted with, all the numerous things he has done over time, you understand why I call him a very important personality. So just to give you a gist and a little bit of a background about who he is, I'll tell you that his full name is Professor Albert Morgan Wright, and he says that, and he believes that everything it is that he is right now at the moment, from his inception and conception till now, is as a result of God. He says that his career path, his process, his spiritual life has been guided by the Almighty God, and he believes that all his choices are a deliberate direction of God. And aside that, he also has been to over 50 countries. How many countries have you traveled? Well, Wright has been to a lot of places. He has had interactions with very important people like the late Kofi Annan. He's also had important interactions with the King of Netherlands. Then, before he became the king, he was the prince. And then he's also had interactions with King Hassan II of Morocco and many, many others. He's worked with lots of people, including the late Prof Kumaple, and also Prof Bamfo Kwache. Quite a number of big names here. Prof Andam at the college, at the university. And like I said, he has played a very pivotal role, not just at the university, but in Ghana. Interview with this very important personality. Thank you so much for according us this opportunity, Prof, to have this discussion with you. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So, Prof, I have given a gist about you, but please just give us a bit more about yourself, starting from where you were working before you were pulled into, because your history talks about the fact that you wanted to bring in people from the world, is it WHO or the World Bank, into the university, and they weren't willing. And so when you said, okay, I'll come in myself and work from within and see how we'll pull people into it and get people ready for Ghana Water Sewerage and other things, having in mind a very bigger vision of what it is you wanted to do, you were able to achieve it and even much more before you left the shores of Ghana. Could you please give us more information about that?
Yes, if I may start with my education. I was educated in Kumasi Methodist School, went to Mfanspim, and I was lucky to be invited by or recommended by my headmaster at Mfanspim to a professor at Durham University who offered me a place there. So that's where I did my bachelor's degree. And then I went to the United States after a short while working with a consulting firm and the Metropolitan Water Board of London. In the United States, I got my master's and later my doctorate at the University of California at Berkeley. And but after my master's, I came to Accra to start working with the Ministry of Health as a public health engineer, working under a WHO engineer, called him a WHO sanitary engineer. And so this was the beginning of my work in Ghana, and I did some work with the Ministry of Health, and which I could tell you about. Okay, in the Ministry of Health, I worked with the doctors on various things, starting with using engineering approaches for controlling communicable diseases. The first of them was actually malaria. And our ambition was to eradicate malaria in Ghana. And we were using two approaches. We prepared hard for it. One approach was to do what they call residual spraying in all buildings. The second was to treat everybody with a particular medication so that people will be free of malaria parasites. And once they are free of malaria parasites, mosquitoes can come back. Mosquitoes that don't have parasites, or when mosquitoes bite them and they don't themselves have parasites, they won't pick any parasites, and there will therefore be no malaria spreading. Unfortunately, we needed cooperation from the contiguous countries like Cote d'Ivoire and Togo, but these two countries were not ready to join us. So all the preparation, years of preparation we were making came to nothing. So that was one thing in which I participated. The other thing I participated was to work with the government in completing a long-standing Accra sewage plan. We did the first phase of it. At that time, as I was working in the Ministry of Health, my concern was that we should start where there was a demand, where people didn't have good sanitation. It turned out that this wasn't the right approach to use. So when we finished the first phase, we couldn't get connections to the sewerage system because the people who should connect didn't have any plumbing systems in their houses because they were too poor. And others who could connect had septic tanks already, and they didn't want to disconnect their system, their houses from the septic tanks and connect to the sewage, and after that, be charged some sewage fees. So these were the conditions that caused the failure of our system. And I learned a lot from it, which I used later on to develop what I call the strategic sanitation approach. And I could talk about that also later on. The other thing I did whilst in the Ministry of Health was to help to start the Ghana Water and Sewage Corporation. I did that with the help of WHO and the World Bank. So these are some of the things I did over there. And we saw that the work that needed to be done in Ghana was enormous, but there weren't any really trained sanitary engineers or public health engineers, as they call them in Britain, to help. So I approached the WHO. They were willing to second some staff to Kumasi, but Kumasi was not ready yet. And later on, talking to the dean, I volunteered to come. Actually, when I was volunteering, I didn't really know that I was applying, but later on he called me and said that the Vice Chancellor had agreed on the salary that I said I wanted. And if I had known that, I would have asked for more than that. Anyway, so later on I moved to Kumasi, and what I did there is something else I think that we're going to be discussing
later. Prof, just a quick one about your work with Ghana Water Sewage Corporation. So I read in the brief biography that I asked for, where you said that there was something to do with the sand. Sand was being imported from Britain to Ghana for works. Yeah, could you please touch on that?
Yes, one of the things that surprised me when I came to Ghana was to find that, in water treatment plants all over the country, we use sand filters. They require a lot of sand. And I found that they were importing sand from Britain for that purpose. And that surprised me. So when I came to Tech and we started some master's programs in sanitary engineering, I got one of the students to work on sand from Ghana and from Britain and compare the effectiveness of these two. And we found there was no practical difference. So I recommended to the Water and Sewage Corporation that there was no need for us to import sand all the way from Britain when we had more than we needed in Ghana. They switched from importing sand from Britain to using local sand for water filtration. An interesting aspect of this was that a few years later, a colleague of mine, an engineering colleague of mine in Nigeria, told me that the politicians in Nigeria wanted them to stop importing sand and he wasn't sure whether it was advisable. What would I recommend to them to do? So I said, so are you still importing sand? We stopped some years ago, and it's really the right thing for you to do. So you must do what the politicians have taken the initiative to ask you to do, and they also tend to do the same thing.
It's interesting. Right now, as we sit here, we find it ridiculous, but I'm sure it must have been a big bone of contention, thinking about, would Ghana sand do the same job that British sand would do? Isn't it? Or you had an idea already that this would work?
Well, from my experience elsewhere, I knew that sand is sand anywhere, and so it should work. And so to prove it, I got a student to work on it, compare the two.
Yes, they give you some.
Yes, we found that there was no practical difference, and we could rely on them. Later on, of course, I did my doctorate on sand filtration, and if I had done that before, I could have confirmed it without that student's input. We found that the principle of removal of particles, cleaning water with sand, applied to any type of sand.
Any type of sand, yeah. Wow, interesting. So, Prof, could you also give us a bit more? So you were working with WHO, and then you, like I said earlier, and from what I read, you chose to come yourself to work with the university. And when you came at the time, the university, the College of Engineering wasn't a college, it was just a faculty with a number of courses. Could you please give us more? You said, I remember, that you used to work in WHO with an Israeli man. And when you came to, I think at the time, the dean of the faculty was also an Israeli, if I'm right.
That is right.
Yes, please.
Interestingly, there were a number of Israelis involved working in Ghana at that time. And so the dean was an Israeli. My boss at the Ministry of Health was an Israeli. The advisor to our president was also an Israeli. Yes. So there were a number of them. I had worked with them. They are among the most brilliant people I had worked with as a group. Anyway, so I was happy to be working with them. And when I came to the university, then I started this master's program. First of all, I taught those in the final year, take the London University exams, the water and sanitation part. And as I stated in my briefing, Dr. Kumapre was one of the first batch that I taught when I joined the University of United States. So I started with this master's program, and with Dr. Levine's permission, we started recruiting people from abroad and all that. And all the students, altogether, I think I must have trained 6 students at the master's level. They were all absorbed by the Water and Sewage Corporation. But later on, we were not necessarily absorbed by them. They worked for different organizations, even including the World Bank.
And Prof, you said Dr. Levine, just back to that, Dr. Levine was the Israelite.
Yes, he was an Israeli.
Yeah, he was the Israeli dean. So you said that you trained 6 people for masters, and then they were absorbed into Ghana Water as what, managerial positions or entry-level positions, or?
They were eventually quickly moved into managerial positions. You see, in the technical area, when somebody is recruited like that, they make him start from the bottom and move quickly to the top. So that's what happened to them. When you do that, then they get to know all the tricks at the lowest levels. And therefore they understand the issues that they should be managing. That's how they started. And they all became regional managers in different parts of the country.
Yeah, because I'm wondering, with master's level then, but yes, like you said, they had to rise through the ranks, even though it was quick, just so that they can pick up what they have to. Yeah. So I'm just thinking, as far back as that, people were doing their masters and then being taken on at the Ghana Water Sewage. Things are not, even though now masters is a big thing and almost kind of common, it's still not almost everybody's acquisition, if I can put it that way. But yeah.